In a war zone, parents go to sleep at night without knowing if their children will see the morning. Those were the words spoken by legendary journalist, the late Marie Colvin. She was talking about wars in Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Syria, but she might just as well have been talking about the carnage on the Cape Flats, where violent death has become a way of life. This is Lavender Hill, whose sweet name is contradicted by its bitter history. In 2012, Special Assignment visited the area during one of the worst spates of gang violence since democracy. Stray bullets had shattered the bodies of children like 3-year-old Jesslyn Sentamu, paralyzing her.
No matter if it's an old lady of 90 and her son is a gangster, take her with a gangster, take the whole family, remove them out of Lavender Hill.
Bullets had randomly struck little boys like 8-year-old Junaid Mackenzie, innocently playing soccer with his friends.
Ik het op groot gemaakt. Ik het school geloos dat mijn ma kan gaan werk. Om achter om te kijken, hij is my boy.
Since then, little has changed here and in other gang-infested suburbs, except for the names and escalating number of innocent victims, like 6-year-old Natlia Pinar, who on Saturday was gunned down outside her Lavender Hill home.
I grew up with gang violence, but it wasn't like it was here. They coming with their spades and you would hear they shout up and then you would hear and they would stab each other and it would be done. And then it's safe, you can come out again. But this, what has happened in a short span of time, was just, I don't have a word to describe it, but it was just inhumane.
Lucinda Evans is an internationally renowned community activist, but she prefers to call herself a human rights defender. She herself was a victim of gang violence a week before her wedding.
The fact that I got shot in Lavender Hill was the turning point for me. Before that, I was very much involved in a lot of things, activism, community work, and that was my hobby. But the night when I got shot in my family home, I didn't see it coming.
That was 21 years ago. Since then, her life has been dedicated to community empowerment. In 2008, she established Pilisa Abafazi Betu, a shelter for abused women and a centre for child and youth protection. The centre is now located outside Lavender Hill High School. Lucinda has also been at the forefront of forums advocating for the army to assist the police in the battle against the deadly culture of criminality consuming the Cape Flats.
The Mitchells Plain cluster have asked for the SANDF as a temporary force multiplier to allow the police to be doing their policing in a protective manner. What we want to see is a force that is here to protect the citizens of this country. Whether it's be you protect the protectors, the outside perimeter, whatever it needs to be specific. It was never meant the SANDF comes in blindly and do their own thing.
After almost 3 months on the Cape Flats, the jury is still out on the impact of Operation Lockdown. There have been substantial increases in arrests and confiscations of illegal weapons and drugs, but the violence continues even against the protectors. Infighting among law enforcement units, corruption, dysfunctional government departments, a chronic shortage of resources, and an overloaded criminal justice system have increased the community's insecurity.
They're male, they are protectors, but I don't feel protected. Our communities doesn't feel protected.
Lucinda and other women leaders have formed partnerships across the Cape Flats to confront the crisis together.
We had to find each other in the midst of carnage, in the midst of chaos, in the midst of there's something happening in Delft, and we as the women from Lavendale or Hanover Park picked up the phone and said, we feel what you feel. This is how I did it here. You do the same.
I meet some of these leaders in early August at a vigil and march to Parliament. It was spearheaded by Moms Move for Justice, an organisation started by Avril Andrews. She is the director and founder member of the Alcado Andrews Foundation, which she launched after her son, Alcado, was murdered in October 2015.
After he got killed, I experienced what it is to lose a son, totally broken, and I had to make a choice.
From 11 women marching to Parliament in 2016, their ranks have swelled, and they are determined to hold government to the promises that were made 3 years ago.
We are women-led leaders of organizations, and the message is always out there that we can't work together, and we've proved them wrong for the second year. We've done it together again.
Also at this event is Ruchshanda Pascoe from the Manenberg Safety Forum. On July the 20th, 2016, she was among more than a dozen community members who watched helplessly as a gang brutally beat a Manenberg resident to death.
More than 20 men coming for one person, and I'm helpless because I had to balance putting my family in danger and helping this person.
The Metro Police also didn't intervene, and although the gang members were arrested, none of the witnesses would testify in court, except for Ruchshanda.
I said no. If we all are going to be fearful and we are all going to say it's best just to leave it, my family's life is at danger or my life is at danger, those people won't get the message that we really want to say enough is enough. The day before I had to testify, my house was shot at. All my children, my grandchildren were in the house, and they are still very traumatized.
She has been forced to flee her home in Manenberg where she grew up. She is now being housed at a place of safety.
I cry a lot of days these days, especially when I look at what is happening and how people still dying. And it comes to a point where I feel I failed my children. I need to make a hard decision of letting go of my children and move on my own, and that I think it's the hardest decision I have to ever make, just to keep them safe.
For the loved ones they could not protect, Moms Move for Justice make a special memorial at the gates of Parliament. They then hand a memorandum of demands that government is all too familiar with.
The purpose is that government must really come sit with us, together with the mothers, and work towards solutions.
For government, I want to say no longer we are allowing you to do things for us, on behalf of us. We want to be with you. We're coming and we're demanding our seat along the table to discuss about what should happen with our lives.
There is no greater pain for a parent than the pain of losing a child. But the tragic reality for thousands of parents on the Cape Flats is that they do not bury the sick and old. They are burying their children.
The pain grows and it grows and it grows and it grows. That's why you see what's happening. You see children are being raped in our communities. Children are being kidnapped in our communities. Children are being recruited. Children become child soldiers now. You understand? They become the soldiers of the gangs.
We are on our way to meet another bereaved mother in Manenberg, a suburb that has also been the epicenter of gang violence and hardship for decades.
Only the people of the community that are being held hostage can make a difference, because it's their children, it's their cousins, it's their nephews, and it's their husbands and boyfriends that commit these hideous crimes.
A reformed gangster Mahadin Wenzel is now a peace ambassador and youth mentor. He is taking us to meet Georgina Harris, whose son, Francesco, was murdered by a gang 10 months ago. He was not a gang member.
And she's very hurt, man. She and her husband, because they couldn't understand. All they wanted to give him, he was a good education, he had a job. And for him to be cut down so quickly, they can't come to terms.
I really don't know what went wrong, or if my child was a gangster, then I would expect this knock on my door. It still feel like yesterday when I miss him very, very much. Then I would just go to that corner and that is his favorite jacket, and this cap, he will go nowhere without that cap.
Francesco was 18 and on the verge of getting a new job.
That Friday, he was signing a contract by the school, and he was so happy and said, "Mommy, now you're going to see I'm going to work for you. You're going to see all the things we're going to do."
But his dreams ended when he was brutally stabbed to death.
On that Saturday morning, he and his daddy went to Van Mall. I was sitting and saying, "No, but he's taking too long now, and I could stand outside." There was no one by the shop, no one in the street. And afterwards I come sit, and a little boy come call me and say, "Auntie Gina, come quick, they're stabbing Jesco on the field." In the car I talked to him, I said, "Jesco, don't leave me." He said, "No, Mommy, I will never leave you, you did talk to me." And as the car driving in, I say, "Jesco, do you get cold?" He said, "No, Mommy." He said, "Mommy, kiss me." And I kiss him on his mouth. This very moment, that hospital feels so small for me, and I just have to get out there. And I went out crawling and crying and calling him.
Ten months later, Francesco's father, Gabby, is a broken man.
He's taking it very hard. Sometimes at night, when I wake up, then he's not in the bed. But when I come here, then he will stand by his father and just crying and talk to him, because it is his only son, his only child.
First of all, there's no interventions, none at all. We don't have psychologists and psychiatrists here. That's why you find people 5 years, 4 years, 3 years after the murder of their sons, a year after the murder, they still cry. Because, I mean, nobody gave them that space to grieve and to heal.
But Georgina is building a bridge from sorrow to healing. She is honouring her child by turning her personal loss into a legacy for him and her community. An experienced practitioner in early childhood development, she has opened a creche.
I was at home grieving, tried to went to counseling, and I thought to myself, I have all my certificates, I have learned so hard, and let me try something. And I did start with 2 children, and it's not even a month, I have 5 children now, and yeah, and they're so excited to come to teach Gina.
The Manenberg community has shown great support for the creche.
When I started, I didn't even have a crayon for them, and I talked to my little girl's principal and said, no, wait, just send someone to the creche. I will give you some things. And she gave me papers, she gave me crayons, she gave me a lot of things. The other guy, Mahadin, around the corner, said he have a box of books, storybooks, and he gave the books to me. I'm just praying and hoping that the creche will grow. And and even as it grows, I can provide jobs for people. I was very angry at the Lord. I stopped praying. And as I starting to heal, The Lord shows me many, many ways, many things.
As evening approaches, in the suburb of Strandfontein, the local community policing forum is already on the beat.
We have regular visibility patrols with the volunteers, and then we also have the volunteer law enforcement auxiliary officers that also participate in the patrols with us. The house on the corner there was very well known for drug and gang activity.
Sandy Schutter is the chairperson, and its members are predominantly women.
A lot of women today are in the forefront. You know, we the hand that rocks the cradle is the hand that rules the world. So we take responsibility in our community as our husbands and our boyfriends and the men in our community goes and works, so we take the responsibility as to what happens in our community.
Tonight the streets are quiet, but shortly afterwards, on this very stretch, the community foils an armed robbery.
I can tell you for 2018 we had 10 murders in Strandfontein, and the spot where we were supposed to meet that is also well known for gang and drug activity, and also the field across the road is also known for gang and drug activity.
Night after night, these boots on the ground are making the streets of Strandfontein safer.
If we all stand up, if we all join hands and put our shoulder to the wheel, we can combat this, because at the end of the day, each of us have a responsibility towards each other.
But the collective trauma of the Cape Flats is deep-rooted, unresolved and intergenerational, caused through the loss of culture, apartheid forced removals and post-apartheid marginalisation. Both the causes and symptoms of this pain have collided into a seismic storm of violence, shattering communities and children's bodies like unguided missiles in a combat zone.
My children can tell me the difference between the frequency, the sounds of bullets, that is not how it should be. It's not normal. We're not in Afghanistan. We are not in Sierra Leone. 25 years ago, this carnage, this war ended. But somehow it never ended for our children in this community.
Since 2013, when we began working very deeply with the fallout of gangsterism and the impact of trauma on communities, more women become survivors, and more women come for trauma counselling than men.
Valdi van Rienen Leroux is the director of the Trauma Centre for Survivors of Violence and Torture. The Trauma Centre's flagship project is a child safety initiative. In April 2018, with incidents of child murder and the recruitment of child soldiers by gangs on the rise, together with civil society groups, she approached the Western Cape government to establish a commission of inquiry into child violence and safety. But the former Premier, Helen Zille, said that based on research, it was unnecessary. The request was also refused on financial grounds. So, on Mandela Day 2018, together with 17 organisations, the centre launched its own People's Commission of Inquiry into Child Safety in the Western Cape.
We brought a variety of children together, and they spoke about their child safety challenges and their lack of protection, and that was damning because they spared no one. They really spared no one. It was not only government that they had indicated was problematic, right to the parents.
Almost 2,000 children participated from all walks of life. They were given postcards to draw their ideal community on the one side, and on the other side, their reality. In August, the Commission launched its final report, detailing its findings and making recommendations.
Children spoke about the lack of housing. Children spoke about the lack of safety. Children spoke about why bullying is increasing, and what was shocking of that was children viewed bullying as a survival mechanism. And we heard children telling us over and over, if we do not bully, we will be bullied.
Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of the report is that it reveals the degree to which trauma has become normalized. Not only are children's lives in peril, but their innocence. It also explains the attraction of gangs.
Number one, we will get protection. Number two, economically, our families will be sorted out. They're going to give us electricity, they're going to give us food, but over and above all of that, we're going to have the brand names.
Scientific experts explain that parts of our brain are wired primarily to detect danger, activating 3 survival options: fight, flight, or freeze. Trauma makes the body switch off its natural functions, except survival. But prolonged exposure to trauma has severe long-term impacts.
The normal brain would be this size, but the size of someone who has experienced violence, even in the womb of the mother, would be much smaller. And so within the first 1,000 days of a child who has been exposed to violence, the child would develop toxic stress.
I fear that, we're going to be in a situation where things will just be so out of control that we won't be able to stop it. My fear is that we will have a generation where there will be no young people. My fear is that mothers that every week has to be at a funeral in different communities, they will not have any more children, they will not recover. My fear is that the children that are now 2, 3, and 4 years old is not going to have an opportunity to be something.
We are wanting to look at how we take the findings and recommendations now and how we actually begin to develop it into our strategic plans to make it real.
We need to do prevention. When are we going to start holding people deeply accountable?
This report clearly says this is not only a government responsible. Whether you business, whether you are civil society, whether you are faith-based, and whether you are government, we are all responsible as adults.